I mean, it's really not that important, right? Sin? No, it's really not that big a deal, right? Kind of just ignore it, minimize it. We justify it. Let me give you a few examples here. Sin is kind of like outdated language. That's like an old religious term, right? Like that's just, rules and regulations, and yeah, that doesn't really have a big impact, I think. It's just kind of outdated. It's just not progressive. Sin is old school. That's like not something that's relevant to my life. Sin is kind of cheeky, right? It's clever, it's tricky. It's not really bad, but it's kind of like, it's mischievous, a little cheeky. Or maybe it's more like a guilty pleasure, right? Sin's kind of like a guilty pleasure, it's something that you do there. Maybe it's a white lie. Maybe a modern conception of sin is like, well, it's kind of just letting go of your inhibitions. It's kind of just getting out there, having a good time, just cutting loose for a little bit. It's kind of like a secret. It's a little naughty. Sin's kind of like an oops. Oops. We have all these different terms related to sin as well that reinforce this kind of minimization of the impact that sin has on our lives, the disruption and chaos and pain that it causes. We have a city in our country, Sin City. What do you do there? Well, what you do there stays there, first of all. A little cheeky, a little naughty. Sin City, we got the sin bin if you ever watch any hockey or rugby. Commit a couple fouls, get shoved straight into the sin bin, right? In other words, if you have too much sin, it's like a timeout. You got to go sit out for a little bit. We got sinfully delicious food. There's a cinnamon roll I want to get every time. It looks amazing at the grocery store, and then I'm like, sinfully good, and I'm like, something about that, I feel like I can't buy that. But it's so good, right? Guilty pleasure. We got sin taxes on alcohol, tobacco, and other things. We have concepts like living in sin. We have all these ideas and conceptions of sin, but they're all kind of aren't they just making it a little bit more easy to digest? A little bit more normal. We're normalizing it. We're minimizing it. We're justifying it if we're really honest. And human society, I think, has tried real hard to shift the definition of what sin is. So much so that I'm going to argue, I don't think we even know what it is anymore. First of all, when I got up here and said it, you should have seen all y'all's faces. You were just like, oh, did I really come to church today? This should have been my bye week. Because what are you expecting, right? Like I'm going to hit you on the head with a hammer or something? Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody does talk about it. And if somebody brings it up, it is so uncomfortable for us, isn't it? The problem, I think, with these definitions and the spin that our culture puts on the idea of sin is it's really that it's cheap and it's trivial and it doesn't actually matter and it's not actually important.